Republicans demanding answers while the White House refuses to talk about President Biden's controversial July phone call with then Afghan President Ghani. We're getting new details of that leaked transcript where the president pressured the Afghan leader to say the Taliban wasn't winning. Ghani reportedly telling Biden, "Mr. President, we are facing a full-scale invasion." Republicans now want the full transcript released and are slamming President Biden over the phone call.
It's just one example of the disastrous miscalculations that brought us to where we are now, with hundreds of Americans left behind in Afghanistan because of Joe Biden's feckless execution of his decision to withdraw.
They don't call him quid pro Joe for nothing. And the most horrible thing about all of this, Tammy, is that the fact that he had to lie means that he knew 6 weeks ago that things were going to go bad.
That's correct.
Yet he didn't adjust his strategy. He didn't warn Americans in that country to leave.
Meantime, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki is being called a hypocrite for refusing to give any details about that call.
Was the president in any way pushing a false narrative in that call with the Afghan president?
I think it's pretty clear. Again, I'm not going to go into details of a private conversation, but what we saw over the course of the last few months is a collapse in leadership. And that was happening even before Ghani left the country.
Greg? No. We'll get to you in a second. Back in 2019, Psaki cared a whole lot about phone calls when it came to President Trump's chat with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Psaki tweeted, "If it is not just the call transcript, the whistleblower complaint would likely have more details. We need both, and it's not just the call." What did you utter, Greg?
When they said it was a collapse of leadership, I was trying to figure out which country she was referring to.
Yes.
Or he was referring to.
Do you want to continue? What you want to?
Okay, sure. Why is this lie important? It kind of tells you how regular lying is in this process, that we've been lied to for so long. How could a war last 20 years? It can if it's tolerable to a point of almost invisibility. So we've had 20 Super Bowls of this, 20 Christmases. How is that possible? The secret to a long war is settling in and making it mildly okay through fibbing. Everything's going well. Oh, the war's great. Everything's fine. It's the lie that kept this thing going. So he did lie. What he did was unethical. Is it impeachment level? I don't think so. But then again, I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat. I don't work at CNN where everything was impeachable. And I suppose, turnabout is fair play. People should be shouting for impeachment. But I think what bothers me is that it's just another sign that the entire picture was never, ever told, and it's never told to us. And that's why I think why Afghanistan fell so fast, because these happy little stories were for us and not them.
Listening to Jen Psaki, you don't respond to a question if you don't have a good answer. And she doesn't have a good answer for this.
Because she's full of hypocrisy. It's hard to answer questions when you have to account with yourself from a previous time period. And let's play the previous time period game for just one moment. Let's play the switch the hat game. You brought up impeachment. If this were President Trump, would there be a push for impeachment? I think we know the answer is yes. If this phone call didn't happen, it was simply the Afghanistan debacle under President Trump, would there be a push for impeachment? Absolutely, I think. A story we're going to do a little bit later. If two top FDA executives resigned under President Trump, would there be a massive controversy? The answer would be yes. So clearly we're not playing by the same rules that we were a year ago. But really quickly on the lie. We need to lay out exactly how cynical this is. What this reveals is that President Biden knew the nature of what was going down in Afghanistan. He knew how bad it was. So he made decisions knowing the potential consequences. We can play the degree game. Was he sure exactly how bad it would be? But he made a calculation to accept that chaos. And I think that he made that calculation because he thought he could play the blame game and lay it off on President Trump. That has failed. The lie failed.
Jess, the poll numbers, let me just bring these in. Woo, as they fall, dropped to 43% in the new poll, the NPR PBS NewsHour poll. And the facts are, we know that the intelligence community warned President Biden, even before he announced the withdrawal in April, that the Afghan National Army would collapse. And so, again, why the cover-up? What's the political gain? Because clearly that was the motive.
Well, so far, we won't know what the political gain is for quite some time, right, until we get closer to the midterms, because this is a huge hot-button issue right now. Then we have the Texas abortion case that came down in the last couple of days, and that's now front and center, and that's really activating liberals who were kind of sitting around saying, we don't actually love the way we exited out of this. This was the right policy decision, but we don't like it, so...
Go ahead, Nana, then I'll interrupt you. Go ahead.
I'm excited. Just give me like 40 seconds.
All right,
I think
ahead.
is all that I need for this one. Okay, the poll numbers are obviously slipping. They are not as low as President Trump's were at this point. And President Obama actually never hit this point until the third year of his presidency. So both Trump and Biden are struggling more than Obama was necessarily. But to the point about this phone call and the, quote, cover-up of it, President Trump asked for a personal favor from the leader of another country. He didn't say something to Zelensky about having anything to do with diplomatic relations. He asked the Ukrainian president to dig up dirt on his political opponent so that he could win a presidential election. That is why that is impeachable. If Biden had said, hey, President Ghani, say that everything is going well, and also if you could dig up dirt on Tom Cotton, he's getting a little hot. You know, I think maybe he might be running in 2024. Then we would be talking about impeachment, and I believe that every single liberal who advocated for it with President Trump would do that with President Biden. But that's not what had happened here. And I was listening to Andy McCarthy talk to you this morning on Mornings with Maria, and he said, I don't see anything wrong with this call between Biden and Ghani here.
In terms of impeachment, but it is so
It's not an abuse of the office.
But the call itself is deeply troubling given the fact that Biden has lied over and over again to the American people about what went down, blaming everybody but himself for literally the death of 13 American troops. Of service members. And that's what's so appalling is, and there is a need, whether it's true or not, there's a need to project a different picture, which is what he is still doing even after the fact, Shannon.
Well, and it gets to Will's point. I think we all know if this was the previous administration, people would be outraged. I think everybody should be outraged, and rightly are right now, that we've lost 13 people who were brave in service to this country. But I think the reaction would be obviously different from the mainstream media and how it was handled. But the American people don't like to be played for suckers. I think that's reflected in the poll numbers. They don't want to think that you're telling them one thing when you might believe something else, whether it's about COVID and masks and French laundry and whatever is going on. And people are going to have more questions about, okay, the vetting is an example. Do we know that people are being fully and thoroughly vetted as they should? I got a message from a former military pilot who now flies commercial, flew one of these big jets out of there. He said, we thought we were on this great humanitarian mission. Then when we got to the States, we were stuck for hours on the tarmac at Dulles Airport outside of D.C. because these people hadn't been vetted. We had to sit there for hours with crying babies and barefoot people and people who hadn't eaten, you know, or had something to drink. And he said they weren't tested for COVID either. So when you don't tell people the full truth, and we're saying now things like these people are fully vetted, everything's good to go, they're going to have questions about everything you say.
Right. Why would you leave hundreds of reporters behind? Why would you leave a majority of translators behind if this was planned? Just a couple more things. Somebody leaked this transcript, and there are people who are pissed off within this administration. And don't you expect that more and more of this is going to come out?
Yeah, and I mean, it's just weird. It's like when you're looking at how we've abandoned our Afghan allies, especially, all you can say is, what did you expect from a racist country run by a racist president? Oh, wait, whoa. I thought I was at CNN and Trump was president. Because that's exactly what I would say.
Well, and you got to think, in Washington, people will start to turn on each other. I mean, the Pentagon, the White House, the intel community, they're all going to be leaking as they point fingers at each other. No one wants to get thrown under the bus over this, so I predict more leaks to come. I
have one more thing to say before we go. You look at this transcript, it shows Joe Biden very much in charge of what was going on. So he is not the cream of wheat slurping cognitive.
Remember, she said that. The next time you say that,
don't knock cream of wheat. One of the underrated breakfast treats.
Okay.
Enough brown sugar. You get it down.
Gruel slurping. Cognitive.
Don't bash the
cognitively gone guy.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.